My beloved child, there are things I do for you that do not begin at the moment you recognize them, nor do they start when you set foot in that place, but have already been arranged by me beforehand with a gentle wisdom your eyes have not yet been able to see. You often think my preparation is something distant, mysterious, and difficult to grasp, like a passing breeze of which you can only feel a small part. But I want you to understand that my hand is never vague in your life. I am not only present in the great events that leave you in awe, but also in every small silence, every coincidence that seems ordinary, every word spoken at the right time, every gentle help that arrives, every door that opens slightly before you have even had the chance to knock. Sometimes you think you are stepping into a new place on your own, but in truth, I have gone there before you. I have softened the hard ground, calmed cold gazes, bent unfavorable situations back into alignment, placed the necessary people in the right positions, and only then whispered for you to move forward. Do not underestimate the moments when your heart is suddenly covered with stillness, even though nothing on the outside has changed. That is not a random emotion, nor is it because circumstances have become easier, but it is the trace of me going ahead of you. When you enter a meeting that should have been tense, yet gentleness unexpectedly opens the conversation first. When you face a new road that should have made you tremble, yet within you there is a quiet strength lifting you up. When someone who was once distant suddenly becomes kind, willing to listen, willing to make room for you. When a place that once frightened you no longer feels like a great shadow trying to cover you, then recognize that I have touched it before you arrived. I do not let you step into emptiness. I do not call you to go and only then begin to provide. I am the Father of preparation, the one who never sends you to any place where I have not already placed the footprints of my love. Many times, you only see the final part of the work I have done, and then you think everything has come to you unexpectedly. But my child, behind an open door are countless things I have quietly shifted. Behind an opportunity that seems natural are countless obstacles I have removed. Behind a heart that suddenly becomes tender are my hidden touches that you did not hear. You only see someone smile at you, but I have healed suspicion within them. You only see a word of agreement, but I have untied knots in the circumstances. You only see the road ahead becoming less rough, but I have passed through it in the darkness of night, leveled the jagged places, and made the path firm enough so your feet would not slip. Therefore, do not call my grace luck. Do not call my guidance coincidence. And do not think that you are walking alone among unknown things. There is an ancient story I want you to remember. When my people stood before the Jordan River, they could not make the waters part by their own strength, nor could they use shouting or impatience to force the river to yield. They had to follow the guidance that had been given. And when obedient feet touched the edge of the water, what had seemed impossible became a path. But before they saw the riverbed dry, I had already prepared the promise before they stepped down. I already knew where the waters had to stop before they understood. I had already set my order over the chaos. You are the same. Many times, you stand before a body of water and do not know how to cross, then think you must find a way on your own. But I do not ask you to divide the river yourself. I only invite you to believe that when I have gone before you, the obstacle will no longer be allowed to hold you back beyond the limit I permit. Your part is not to control every current, but to follow my call with a tender and courageous heart. I know you often look toward tomorrow with anxious eyes. You wonder whether you will have enough wisdom to choose rightly, enough strength to stand firm, enough perseverance to reach the end of the road, enough purity to be worthy of what I entrust to you. Those questions can weigh down your heart, because you keep measuring yourself against things greater than your own strength. But my beloved child, I do not call you based on your sufficiency. I call you based on my faithfulness. The strength that keeps you standing is not found in the fact that you have never trembled, but in the truth that I never leave. The assurance for your steps is not that you know everything, but that I know everything clearly. You do not need to become someone who is never afraid before you can move forward. You only need to place that fear in my hands and let me lead you through each stage. When I go before you, the things that oppose you no longer retain the full power you imagine they have. There are traps that have already lost their force before you see them. There are accusations I have silenced before they touch your ears. There are arrows I have broken in the hidden place. So you only feel a light breeze without knowing what you have just been protected from. There are doors I want you to walk through that will open not by force, not by loud noise, but by a peaceful favor that makes you recognize this is not the result of striving and pushing, but the sign of guidance. I do not need you to break down walls with weary hands. At the right time, I can cause walls to collapse by themselves, cause obstacles to move back, cause what seemed closed to become wide open before you. Therefore, do not live as though the full responsibility of opening the way rests on your shoulders. You were not created to carry the entire future by your own strength. You are invited to listen, to discern the signs of peace, to walk according to my leading rhythm, to stop when I tell you to stop, and to move forward when I tell you to move forward. There are times I open the door, and there are times I keep the door closed, and both are love. An open door is not always a reward for your worthiness, but a grace I place in its proper season. A closed door is not always rejection, but maybe a fence protecting you from a place not yet meant for you. If you only love open doors and become angry at closed doors, you will miss my care in the things you do not yet understand. Let me teach you to trust both in moving forward and in waiting. My beloved child, there are seasons when you ask me to make the heat around you cease immediately, as though my love could only be proven by taking you out of everything that hurts you. I hear your voice in the nights when you no longer have enough words to describe what you feel. I see every tear you try to hide. I know the times when you wonder why. Though you have trusted, you still have to pass through narrow places. Why? Though you have tried to live uprightly, you still face trials that come one after another. But today I want to speak to you with deep tenderness. Not every fire is extinguished by me immediately, and not every heat is a sign that I am far away. There are places from which I do not lift you out at the first moment, because I want you to discover a grace greater than escape from circumstances. My presence, right in the midst of what you thought you could not endure. You have often thought that if I loved you, I would make everything gentler before you stepped into it. But my child, my love is not only shade outside the heat of the sun, it is also the hidden stream flowing in the desert itself. I am not only the one who gives peace after the storm has passed, I am also the one who stands beside you while the wind is still blowing hard, while the house is shaking, while the ground beneath your feet seems about to split open. There are days when you look around and see only everything burning red, words that wound, pressure that weighs heavily, misunderstandings that linger, doors that close, hopes that seem near suddenly moving farther away. You think that place contains only heat, but I see a place of encounter. You think it is the place where you have been left behind, but I call it the place where I reveal my nearness in a way that cannot be mistaken. So do not rush to measure my faithfulness by how quickly or slowly circumstances change. Sometimes I perform a miracle by opening a door right before you, but sometimes I perform a miracle by keeping you standing in a room where no exit has yet appeared. Sometimes I calm the sea, but sometimes I teach you to walk through the sound of the waves without being swallowed by fear. You once wished that I would speak one word and make everything disappear, but instead I chose to draw so near that every hurried breath of yours would no longer be lonely. I do not stand far away and watch you struggle. I do not sit on a cold, high throne waiting for you to manage everything yourself. I step into the hottest place, the place where you feel weakest, the place where you no longer know what to hold on to, so that you may recognize that I am not afraid of what is making you tremble. There is an ancient story I want to place before your eyes, not as a distant memory, but as a small lamp shining on today's road. When Paul and Silas were imprisoned, their backs carried wounds. Their feet were fastened in stocks. Darkness covered everything around them, and there was no sign that the doors would open. If one looked with natural eyes, people would say they had been abandoned, defeated, locked inside a circumstance with no way out. But in the depth of night, they lifted their voices to praise me, not because the chains were comfortable, nor because the prison had become beautiful, but because they knew I was still present in that place. Then the earth shook. The doors opened. The chains fell off. And what had been a place of confinement became a place that witnessed power and mercy. Do you see? I do not always prevent darkness from appearing, but I can turn that very darkness into the place where light is recognized more clearly. From that story, learn that no wall can keep me out. No chain can make me powerless, and no closed room can prevent me from entering. The thing that hurts you is not strong enough to push me far from you. The thing that frightens you is not great enough to hide you from my sight. The thing that makes you think you are trapped still lies under my gentle rule. I know there are times when you only want everything to end quickly, and I do not blame you for that. A weary child longs to be carried out of the burning place, and I understand this. But I also want you to grow in the knowledge that there are graces found only when you go through and are still preserved. When you weep and are still not abandoned. When you do not understand and still do not let go of my hand. My beloved child, trials do not have the right to define you. The heat does not have the right to name you. Heavy days are not a sentence over your life. They are only seasons in which I am purifying your trust, removing from you the invisible cords that once tied you to fear, to the approval of others, to fragile supports, to the thought that you must always control everything in order to have peace. There are things that only fall away from you when you pass through fire, not because I want to hurt you, but because I want you to be free. You think you are losing safety, but many times I am separating you from places that no longer nourish you. You think you are being weakened, but I am teaching you that strength does not come from straining yourself, but from knowing how to lean on me. When you ask, why do you not put it out immediately? I am not offended by that question. I am Father, and a father is not afraid of his child's tears. I do not turn my face away when you lament, nor do I regard your trembling as failure. I bend closer. I let you speak all the things caught in your throat. Then, in the silence that follows, I remind you that my love is deeper than immediate rescue. If I take you out at once, you may know me as the one who opens the way. But when I am with you in the fire, you will know me as the one who never leaves. If I make every pain disappear immediately, you may rejoice because you have escaped danger. But when I keep you whole in the midst of heat, you will recognize a peace that does not depend on the outward scene. And then, a day will come when you look back on this season with different eyes. What today you call a furnace may one day become evidence of preservation. What today you call a long night may one day become the place where you remember that I sang over you with tenderness. What today you think is only ashes may one day become the ground from which new life rises. Not every fire comes to burn everything down. There is a fire I allow to pass through in order to make true gold shine, to release the fragrance of trust, to let you know you are not as fragile as you thought when my hand covers you. Therefore, breathe more slowly in my presence. Do not rush to conclude that you have been forgotten simply because you are still in the trial. Do not think your prayer has fallen into empty space simply because the answer has not yet come in the way you hoped. I am here, nearer than your sobbing, nearer than the wound you carry, nearer than every threat trying to steal your peace. I do not promise you a road without fire, but I promise that no fire will be permitted to separate you from my love. When you no longer have the strength to walk quickly, I will slow my steps beside you. When you no longer have words enough to pray, I will hear even your silence. When you think all that remains of you is ash, I will breathe into it the warmth of hope. My beloved child, I want you to understand that the peace I place within you is not something that must speak loudly in order for others to recognize it. It does not push itself to the front to prove its presence. It does not need to introduce itself with dazzling signs, and it does not seek attention in the middle of a crowd. My peace is like a soft light under a doorway in a long night, not blinding anyone, but enough for the lost to know there is still a warm place. It is like the faint fragrance of precious oil, not forcing anyone to turn around. Yet anyone who passes by feels their heart become calmer. You may sit quietly in a small corner, holding a cup of warm water, not saying much, not doing anything remarkable. And yet the stillness within you quietly spreads, like warmth from a coal stove burning beneath a poor roof. People may not know the name of what they feel, but they will sense that the atmosphere around you has changed, becoming less tense, less hurried, less heavy. Sometimes you think you are only being present in a very ordinary way in life, but I use that very ordinariness as a small vessel containing what is holy. You do not need to stand high above others to instruct everyone, nor do you need to have an answer for every pain someone brings to you. Many times, what I want through you is not a long explanation, but an unhurried presence. When the weary sit near you, they may not yet say what is pressing on their chest, but their breathing will slowly become calmer. When the anxious meet you, they may not understand why they feel less afraid. They only know that in your presence there is a space not occupied by the storm. When those who are used to living under pressure enter the same room as you, they will sense another rhythm. A rhythm that does not come from competition, does not come from the need to prove oneself, does not come from the fear of being left behind. I do not place peace within you only so that you may keep it for yourself like a treasure locked away. I place it within you so that your life may become a place of rest for those passing through long days. You do not know how many people pass by you in a state of exhaustion, but just one gentleness in your eyes, one slow-spoken word, one act of listening without judgment can remind them that this world has not become entirely cold. Some will meet you only briefly, only a few words in an afternoon, only one greeting in a hallway, only a small conversation beside a work table, and then they will continue on without knowing that I touch them through the quietness within you. They may not call it grace. They may not know it is my trace. But deep within, they will wonder why. After meeting you, their hearts are no longer as tangled as before. My child, true peace does not need to argue in order to win. It does not enter a room like someone wanting to dominate, but like a lamp placed in the right place. It does not use sharpness to subdue others, but uses gentle steadiness to remind every form of chaos that it has no right to rule. People have grown too accustomed to outward sounds, the sound of demands, rivalry, judgment, hostility. They are also accustomed to inner noises, fear of tomorrow, regret over yesterday, the feeling of not being good enough, not fast enough, not worthy enough, not loved enough. Therefore, when they stand near someone who is not swept away by those sounds, they will recognize a difference that words cannot fully describe. Not because you are perfect, but because you are learning to remain in me. Not because you have no trials, but because trials are no longer allowed to govern your entire breath. I want to remind you of an image from ancient times, when the Shunammite woman opened a small room for Elisha to rest in. That room was not a palace. It had no outward glory, only a bed, a table, a chair, and a lamp. But because that place was set apart for what belonged to me, it became a resting place, a pause along the journey, a place where my presence was honored through simple things. Do you see? I do not always need great spaces to do great works. I can use a small room, a simple table, a welcoming heart, to sow blessings beyond what human eyes can measure. Your life is the same. When there is a room within you set apart for me, whether you are in a small cafe, at work, on a vehicle, among family, or among strangers, I can still make that place become somewhere others can breathe more lightly. Therefore, do not underestimate the quietness I am building within you. There are lives that are not changed by thunder, but by a very gentle encounter. There are hearts that are not opened by a long sermon, but by someone who knows how to listen without rushing to fix. There are heavy days in someone's life that are lifted simply because they meet in you a gaze that does not condemn. You think you are not doing much, but I am doing many things through you. You think you are only silent, but if that silence is placed in me, it can become good ground where someone else lays down their burden. You think you are only living a little more slowly, but for someone being swept into the whirlwind of anxiety, that slowness is like a bell calling them home. Yet you must guard that source of peace by remaining near me. Peace is not an appearance you try to create, nor is it a beautiful garment worn on the outside to hide troubled places within. My peace begins where you dare to lay before me what you cannot control. It grows when you stop trying to carry everything by your own strength. It deepens when you learn to trust that I still reign over even the things you do not understand. If you only try to appear calm, you will grow weary. If you only try to speak gentle words while your inner being is full of struggle, you will run dry. But when you truly let me touch your fears, heal your wounds, and teach you to rest in my care, that peace will no longer be a role you play. It will become a hidden stream flowing through every word, every choice, and every step you take. Then you will realize that peace does not make you distant from the pain of others. On the contrary, it allows you to draw near to them without being swallowed by their chaos. The one who is crying needs someone who is not afraid of their tears. The one who is afraid needs someone who does not make that fear greater through haste. The one who is angry needs a softness firm enough not to answer wound with wound. I am teaching you to become such a person, not by forced strength, but by abiding in me. When you enter a room, you do not need to carry the pressure of rescuing everyone. You only need to carry the presence that I have made still. The rest, I will know how to touch each person according to their need. My beloved child, do not think that my presence within you is only recognized when you speak great words, do remarkable works, or stand among crowds to prove something. There is a way I walk with you that is very quiet yet full of power. I let my atmosphere soak into your life, and from that life, it spreads wherever you set your feet. Like the fragrance of a garden after rain that does not need to introduce itself, yet still causes passers-by to slow down. Like warmth from a small kitchen seeping through wooden walls, though no one can see its shape. So is my life. It does not force. It does not make noise. It does not push forward. It simply remains there. Quiet. Steady. Pure. Causing heavy places to begin to feel lighter. Tense faces to gradually soften. And sharp words to suddenly lose part of their sting. You do not need to try to carry me like a burden on your shoulders. You only need to remain in me. And what belongs to me will follow you, as light follows the dawn. Many times you enter a room where no one knows what you have just been through. No one understands how I have sustained you. And no one hears the hidden conversations between you and me. Yet the moment you are present, something changes. Not because you are trying to control that space, nor because you want everyone to notice you, but because you no longer come there with darkness weighing heavily on your shoulders. You come with a softness I have shaped, with a breath that has learned to rest, with a gaze that no longer rushes to condemn, with a heart that no longer wants to compete for position. Others may not be able to name what they feel, but they recognize that beside you there is a spaciousness. Near you, they feel less contracted, less defensive, less forced to hide their weariness. That is not merely your natural pleasantness, it is the trace of my life dwelling in you and radiating through you. I know there was a time when you thought serving me meant always having to try more, do more, endure more, prove more. You thought the calling was a heavy stone placed on your shoulders. And because you loved me, you tried to carry it with all your strength. But my child, I do not call you into an exhausted life and then call it faithfulness. I do not rejoice when I see you dried out and still forcing a smile as though that is what I require. What I want to teach you today is deeper. True mission does not begin with straining, but with union with me. When you are near me, what you carry out is no longer the pressure to match the image others expect, but the breath of life. You no longer have to carry stones to prove your love. You are invited to carry the fragrance of grace like a branch bearing blossoms when its season comes. Therefore, do not take lightly your hidden life before me, the hours when you quietly return to me, the moments when you lay down worry instead of letting it control your words, the times when you choose gentleness instead of answering with bitterness, the moments when you let me heal you within instead of hiding behind busyness. All of these are shaping the atmosphere you carry. A person cannot bring true peace to another place if they have not first learned to receive peace from me. A person cannot make a room feel wider if their own heart is still being tightened by fear and rivalry. But when you let me work in the most hidden places, you will not need to try to shine. The light will come forth on its own through the way you look, the way you listen, the way you are silent, the way you are present among those who need a safe place to breathe. Remember the story of Moses when he came down from the mountain after days in my presence. He did not need to announce to the people that he had just met me. His face reflected it. The light did not come from his pride, nor from his skill in persuasion, but from the fact that he had remained long enough before me. This tells you that you cannot manufacture glory by your own effort, but you can be transformed when you stay near me. People may hear you speak about peace, but they will believe more deeply when they can feel that peace in the way you live. People may hear you speak about hope, but they will be lifted more when they see you remain gentle in a season that is not yet easy. People may hear you speak about light, but they will recognize that light most clearly when the darkness of circumstances does not make you hard. My beloved child, do not force yourself to transmit me through words beyond your strength, through an overly solemn appearance, or through the effort to make others change immediately. I do not send you out as another noise into a world already filled with too much noise. I send you out like a lamp placed where light is needed, like a small stream flowing through thirsty ground, like a warm hand laid upon someone's cold day. Some people will not remember exactly what you said, but they will remember that when they were near you, they felt less condemned. Some people will not understand deep doctrine, but they will recognize that you did not look at them with contempt. Some people standing on the edge of giving up will suddenly find a little courage still within them, simply because they met in you a gentle steadiness that did not push them farther away. I want you to know that presence is also a form of sowing seed. Not every seed is sown by advice. Some seeds are sown by a timely smile, by a silence that does not shame another person, by a sincere question, by a way of staying that does not rush to leave when someone is weak. You do not always need to explain why they should hope. Sometimes you only need to stand beside them as living evidence that hope can still exist. You do not always need to speak about life. Sometimes the very way you do not give up. Do not become bitter. Do not retaliate. Do not rush to judge is already a deep testimony. I can use your simple presence to open a small doorway in someone else's heart, through which my light will continue to enter after you have already gone. But you must also guard what I have placed within you. The atmosphere you carry is not nourished by haste, is not preserved by pride, and cannot grow if you keep drinking from the anxiety of this world. Return to me often, as a traveler returns to a well. Let me wash from you the weariness you have absorbed from others, the heavy words you have unintentionally carried, the fears you mistook for responsibility. You are not called to hold all the chaos of the world inside your heart. You are called to become a place where I can set my stillness. When you find yourself becoming sharp, return. When you find yourself wanting to prove something, return. When you find yourself tired from trying to be strong, return. I will soften again what has grown hard, refill what has been emptied, and brighten what has grown dim. Then you will understand that your mission is not to carry a slogan, but to carry life. It is not to try to light a torch in the wind with trembling hands, but to stay so near me that my light burns in you by itself. It is not to convince everyone that I am good, but to live in such a way that my goodness can be tasted through the way you treat them. You will no longer enter any place with the feeling that you must strain to represent me through perfection. You will enter with humility, knowing that I am the one who acts, and you are the vessel I use. The vessel does not create the fragrant oil by itself. It is simply opened at the right time so the fragrance can spread. My child, walk more lightly. Do not turn what I have given you into a burden. Do not use service as a measure by which to condemn yourself. Do not think you only have value when you do something great in the eyes of the world. There are rooms that need the stillness you carry more than they need a speech. There are hearts that need to feel welcomed more than they need to hear a complete answer. There are days when I will use you not through how much you say, but through the fact that you do not let fear speak in your place. Remain in me. Let my breath go with you. Let my atmosphere surround your steps, so that when others meet you, they may feel their hearts become wider, lighter, and quietly remember that there is still a merciful one calling them back to life.